Hello everyone, Mrs. Doublebit here to start off this video. First I want to apologize that it's super late. That is totally my fault for not editing it on time. The reason I'm here is because Doublebit did not do an intro for this video. He was in a rush. But the gist is, we got this micro camper for a steal to replace this pop-up. And the reason we got it for a steal is because the frame was not constructed properly. It had broken welds all along the tongue, and it needed an entire new frame put underneath. So this video is him going through and taking a donor trailer and turning it into the frame for this trailer. The reason he is very rushed is because we took a camping trip just days after he completed this. So we were kind of in a rush to make sure it was ready to go. Anyways, enjoy the video. It's mostly just a lot of time lapses, some satisfying, rust grinding and cleaning and painting and such. But anyways, enjoy the video.
Alright, so here's the trailer we're going to be working on today. It's got all sorts of different types of metal in it throughout it. What I've done so far is I've taken the liberty of using two 7/16 wrenches to get the nuts off of the carriage bolts. So there was 2 nuts per bolt on the trailer. So I know exactly what you guys are going to be saying. That's a lot of nuts! So now what we're going to be going into is taking these boards off, and we're going to be cutting some of these old welds and taking out some of the cross members so we can get down to the original frame. And then when we're down there, we're going to clean it all up. Any of the parts we're going to keep normal without fixing up or changing, we're going to immediately clean and paint, so that way it just makes less work for us in the future. So now we go to the time lapse of taking the boards off, going into that. Alright, so where we're at right now is I've got the camper up on jack stands. I have stripped down the frame and also painted it. So it was stripped down to what it was originally before all the additions of whatever it had become in its lifetime. So down to its core. Going to take out the mullion and the aluminum in here. I was having issues with it last night. The oscillating tool wasn't quite cutting through as quick as I was hoping, and that thing is super loud since it's a empty chasm for the aluminum frame, and just really rocking my ears. So we're gonna go at it with a Sawzall as well as a circular saw and bimetal blades to cut that off on the bottom, as well as we're gonna cut off the tongue the rest of the way, and we're gonna mount this frame up underneath, see what we need for dimension on it, and then I will cut the other steel, sand that down, weld it onto this, get it painted, and then we're gonna mount that up as the final piece. The axle itself doesn't have to come off, which is nice. I can feed the frame through underneath, since this just runs on 2 L channels that have the leaf springs that connect to the actual under what is known as a drop-in axle or a drop-down axle. Both terms work if you look at it or search for it, purchase both. So yeah, that is the fun that we're going to jump into right now. It's been a minute, but I'm going to get this done. Alrighty, so as you can kind of tell, this all transpired at the same moment when I did the end of each of these videos, but that is alright. So, as you had seen and heard in the prior video when I did my truck bed, it was to get this beauty over the mountains, about over 5 hours drive each way to pick this guy up. But the original downfall was the 3 brakes in the original tongue. So we took a donor trailer, stripped it down to its original, probably what was like a boat trailer frame, and then we built off of that. I went through and cut, measured, and designed everything to incorporate underneath it, and there was a few reasons why I did what I did. So the metal skirting that goes all the way around it and was the frame is what is called mullion or curtain wall for commercial construction, and it is very thin, very flimsy kind of metal. It's a bit more on the cheap side. It's meant to be mass produced and have one purpose, which is to hold glass and look pretty. That's pretty much it. It helps you cover your RO for any kind of certification to let you know that no moisture will get in, mildly help keep kind of the cold and heat from intertwining with each other and keep one on the outside, one on the inside, whichever time of year. So that's its basis. It was not meant to be the frame of a trailer. Way too thin. So with that being said, I cut off the front tongue, as you saw in the time lapses, and what you didn't see that I didn't end up having the ability to film just for time constraints was I ripped the 3 beams going across underneath, because what he did was he had 3 beams and then he had a box that those 3 beams went across in. Then he attached to that box the tongue, which was the pyramid point, is what the tongue is. That goes off the front of the trailer that connects it to your hitch receiver. So that's the principle of how he built it. If he had even just let one of those pieces go from the very front where it connects all the way to the butt end of the trailer, it probably would have been fine. But since he didn't design it that way and that flaw caused a failure, which was catastrophic, we were able to band-aid the trailer through 2 metal straps on either side to get it here, but that was only a temporary fix. It still wiggled like crazy, and purely by the grace of God did we get here without it shearing those 2 plates of metal. Now, for aluminum and metal to come into contact with each other, it causes a galvanic corrosion. And it's just dissimilar metals will slowly erode each other because as they make contact, they're dissimilar, they don't melt, they cause rusting of each other. So, what I have done, and the prior owner had done, for this drop axle kit is it has 2 L channels that drop underneath the trailer and lock into it. And then it has an axle that drops down, not connected to anything except for leaf springs that connect to those 2 L channels. All of it's steel. So he did what I ended up doing, which is truck bed liner on the actual frame itself, or the aluminum. So what that does is it causes a barrier. Even the 2 being mounted together, there's that barrier in there. Now, most of the time whenever we would warranty out anything, we gave it a 10 to 15 year warranty on any work that we did that was called steel loaded, which is curtain wall, which is funny enough. So the principle's still there. And that is what they use in any site that you see a 3-story building that's all glass. They put a steel beam of steel, or a solid steel beam of steel into the hollow mullion of aluminum. But you have to paint it first, then you steel load it, mount that steel to the aluminum, and then you're given 10 to 15 years before it starts to cause corrosion that could potentially cause damage. So my plan is 10 to 15 years down the road, if I still have this, I'll address it then, change it up. So what I left was the U shape of aluminum that starts here, goes to the back, across, and then up to the front. So that aluminum still exists mainly because everything was screwed into and built off of that. He's got 2x4s about every 10 inches with insulation between those 10 inches of the 2x4 standing up for the entire bottom. So those go over and screw into that U shape. So I couldn't really take that off. The front one had 2 long bolts. So I unscrewed those bolts and cut out that aluminum, made sure everything was taken out, ripped that out, slid that boat frame underneath after I had, in the time lapse as you saw, stripped it down to the base metal, painted it with some farm implement paint, got that all nice. I had to resand the spots that I knew I needed to be welded, but instead of kind of having a guess on it or trying to have to spray paint it up there, I painted the whole thing, cleaned the spots, welded the spots, repainted the spots. So that frame's under there. I've got more of that L channel, and these actual loops were on the donor trailer, so I just left them attached because they are actually welded quite nicely. So that's now welded to the frame, and then I've got 2 struts of smaller L channel going to the tongue, to the sides, so that way the toolbox has something nice and sturdy to stand on. Each one of those thin bars actually sat on, stood on, jumped on, they were solid. And then as the underneath, I have 2 bars going from the bottom of each L channel on each side, going across in front of the axle and behind the axle on the leaf springs, or in front of the leaf springs rather. And those are welded in multiple points to the frame itself. So that way it's all nice, solid in structure as a frame, as a T-shape. And then I also have that long tongue goes all the way to the butt end, so I can still put on a hitch receiver if I wanted to for a bicycle, a generator, what have you, to be attached to this trailer if I wanted. Not necessarily is it something I'm going to use all the time, but it is nice to have features and options for it. But besides that, I welded on the jack stand here, and I made sure to bolt and weld on the actual tongue hitch receiver point, and she's good to go. We took it up on top of the mountain, bumped around like crazy, drove it back. We just drove it and got it weighed as well. So the trailer dry originally was it was 1,520 pounds. and we have brought the weight up with all the steel we added into it, and we took some wood off for the bed frame in the middle, which I'll show you here in a second. So that dropped this entire total weight up to, or brought it up to, 1,660 pounds. So we didn't add much, 140 pounds worth of steel, took away some wood to kind of compensate for that steel, but still, it's a solid structural frame now. I have all the points with bed liner that may come in contact or are in contact with the aluminum of the sides, and I'm still borrowing all that strength and structure from it, and I don't see any issues with it. It's something I'll continue to check every time we pull it out to go take it for a jaunt, spend the night somewhere, what have you, everything that you would do with a normal teardrop, or a square drop trailer, which is what a lot of the custom builds are called. But that, all in and of itself, is what we have done to this trailer, and now it is finished. So, all that to say, let's take a look at the inside of it and see what you think of just what she looks like on the inside. We also did modify the bed to be able to fold into a couch. So let's take a look. Alrighty, so when you open the back hatch, we've installed a curtain. Reason being is this is actually a galley kitchen here. So if you pull the Velcro out, let it slide down, you can slide out the galley kitchen. So you can put a little Coleman stove on the bottom here and have any of your cooking oil, paper towels, measuring cups, anything like that. My wife's already put in little command hooks all over the place. We did take it camping, we just emptied it to get a dry weight because we were curious on what this weighed after we were all done with it. Just didn't have time before camping. So that folds back up. I have a little Velcro strip. On the inside there's two command hooks to hold those up. They had kind of bounced out from driving back. Got a tension rod to hold in a couple of different little baskets of stuff. We have some little cubby holes, which we use for like dirty laundry and other various things of either clean laundry that became dirty laundry, what have you. We've got a nice radio in there, and we do have a speaker here and a speaker up top. You can't really see it. In the bottom down there is our fuse box. Next to it is an inverter that works very well. And then we have our voltage controller. Kind of zoom in so you can see there. Yep, there's the voltage controller. Gives you two USBs as well as a 12 volt kind of like a cigarette lighter adapter. We have plenty of storage underneath. Originally when we got this from them, where these 2x4s are, was a single 2x12 that went the full length, and then a third one, and then a fourth one along the wall. So we opted out to swap it over to 2x4s, knowing it'd be just as strong, and that was actually where we saved a lot of weight. And we also cut down the middle of the top of the bed, so that way it can hinge out and become a bed with a mattress on top of it, and the mattress goes all the way against here, and then you have storage all underneath it. But in our case, if it got super rainy, we left it in a couch position, so that way we could have a place to kind of take solace out of the rain or weather, sit back and relax. But we can have about 3 people for watching a movie, which is awesome. We do have some mild wiring I need to play with. So the original connection point here that would connect, as you can see, has been rubbing each time the door opens and closes. The original creator's design's a little flawed, so what I'll probably do is punch a hole right here and then have the wires just droop underneath, so that way as the door opens and closes it'll kind of intrude and then pull tight. But I think that'll be a better solution than trying to have it go off the top, which is obviously pinching and breaking wires. So due to this, the 3 bulbs on the back and the lights on this right side do not work. So we're going to try to get those rebuttoned up and moved in the door, and that's pretty much all that I have left to do. Has a nice vent on top, all the rest of the lights work, has a nice deep cycle battery in the front boot, as well as it has 2 jack stands that we can then throw underneath for leveling jacks, rather, not jack stands. 2 leveling jacks we can throw under the rear, so you have 3 points of contact, which is all we did, and it's nice, it doesn't wiggle, and super easy to set up. And you just take out the mattress for a second. The side here actually folds down. Gotta hold that mattress topper back, and actually put these on hinges so they can actually fold flat, hinge over, and then pop out. Because if I left them on there as that approach, it would hit. So I had to make them hinge so that way they could drop down, open up. And me and my wife slept in here, no issues, quarrels or anything. Things fully insulated. We were actually roasting and had to open up the vent and the window, and we were in 40-ish degree weather up on top of the mountain. So definitely well insulated if we're having to crack it open, just because we're both roasting in here. But all in all, an awesome camper. It does have a side table mount, so that mounts on, and then we also have a side table. And the ARB awning was phenomenal. Kicks out really far, and nice solid aluminum poles for the sides, so everything was really solid and structural, and it was just a fun, easy camping experience, and it is just awesome. Well, thank you all so very much for joining me. Ooh, it's bright out here. And hopefully you enjoyed the video. It was just a quick time lapse. If you have questions or anything, feel free to leave those in the comments down below and let me know what you think. So far, this is kind of still going to be something that I'll continue to tinker with, play with. We might add a spare on the side over here and mount it on the outside of the wall. A couple other little modifications down the line, probably solar panels on the top, 1 to 2 to charge the battery, because as is right now we have to charge the battery manually through a battery charger, and then we just plug it in and run with it. So this trip wasn't too bad. When we got it, it wasn't fully charged, and we haven't charged it yet. So it's still just roughly around 12 volts. So used it from the 24 volt system, as it says on the indicator, down to that point, and it's still staying consistent. So it's definitely worked out great. Thank you all so very much. Hopefully you had a good time. Enjoy yourselves, enjoy your evening. And if you haven't already and you liked the video, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't, it helps the channel out greatly. If you want notifications each and every time that I come out with content, I'm going to be a little bit more regular now if I can, since my head's kind of a little bit more clear from solid non-stop working for about a month and a half on these two. I think I have a little bit more headspace. So thank you all so very much again, and have yourself a wonderful evening.